We live in a culture that rewards the grind. We are encouraged to document our late nights, our early mornings, and the sheer volume of sweat equity we pour into our work. The logic is simple. If people see how hard we try, they'll respect the achievement that follows. But human psychology actually works in the exact opposite direction. When you explicitly display the grueling labor and the heavy costs behind your success, you don't magnify your power, you dilute it. Consider a famous account from 16th century Japan. The legendary tea master, Sen no Rikyu, was attending a ceremony hosted by an acquaintance. Midway through the evening, the host casually stepped out into the dark garden, held up a lantern, and cut a fresh lemon from a tree to serve as a garnish. At first, Rikyu was charmed by how spontaneous and natural the gesture felt. Then, the host served that lemon alongside an incredibly rare and expensive Osaka rice cake. Rikyu instantly realized the truth. The host had planned the lemon cutting all along to perfectly pair with this costly delicacy. The spontaneity was an act. Rikyu was so put off by the desperate attempt to prove cleverness that he politely declined the cake and left. This leaves us with a paradox. Achieving greatness absolutely requires immense pre-planned labor, yet the moment an audience catches you sweating, the moment they see the machinery of your effort, the spell breaks. A sudden flash of lightning or a rushing flood requires no planning and no visible preparation. These forces arrive with a grace and ferocity that humans have spent centuries trying to imitate. It is this quality, power that appears without warning and moves without friction, that triggers primitive awe. During the Renaissance, courtiers and artists formalized this idea into a concept called sprezzatura. It is the strict practice of completely concealing your artistry. You practice endlessly in the dark so that, in the light, the most complex achievements appear entirely unforced. No modern figure mastered this quite like Harry Houdini. In 1904, a massive crowd packed a London theater for an impossible challenge. He was locked into a custom-built pair of manacles. A Birmingham blacksmith had spent 5 straight years engineering them, outfitting the cuffs with 6 sets of locks and 9 separate tumblers. Houdini retreated into his cabinet. Minutes passed. Then he poked his head out, casually complained about the heat, and asked to have the cuffs briefly removed so he could take off his coat. The challengers refused. Unbothered, Houdini pulled a penknife from his vest using his teeth and sliced the coat off his own arms, demonstrating supreme, effortless dexterity. He went back inside and eventually triumphantly emerged, completely free. The audience erupted. They didn't know he intentionally dragged out the clock for an hour to heighten the drama and toy with the audience, sitting perfectly calm. Houdini succeeded because he never let the audience suspect the mechanics of his escape. When you imitate the absolute ease of nature, you project the illusion of nature's limitless power. But we have to pull the curtain back. Magic does not exist. There is only the front stage, where the illusion happens, and the backstage, which consists entirely of heavily guarded, agonizing labor. Behind closed doors, Houdini was obsessively studying mechanics and lock design. He spent months painfully training his throat muscles with a peeled potato tied to a string, learning how to swallow an ivory ball and bring it back up so he could securely hide lockpicks inside his own esophagus. This kind of hidden, asymmetrical effort happens outside of magic, too. When a Japanese lord named Yorinobu needed to impress an important guest, he secretly hired a whaleboat and a crew of fast rowers. They rowed day and night across the sea to fetch a specific antique stone lantern he had left sitting in a bamboo thicket for 20 years. By the time his guest arrived, the lantern was perfectly positioned in the garden. It was covered in delicate moss, looking as if it had sat there naturally for decades. The guest was awed, completely blind to the frantic, expensive logistics that had taken place just hours prior. Keeping the backstage strictly sealed builds a strategic monopoly. When your methods remain invisible, you become the only person capable of delivering your specific result. There's an old story of a wrestling master who took on a young prodigy. Over months of training, the master taught his student 359 different holds, throws, and feints. The student grew arrogant, boasting he could easily defeat his teacher. A royal match was arranged. The student charged in, only to be instantly caught and thrown to the ground. The master won effortlessly by deploying the single secret 360th move he had intentionally withheld. Houdini weaponized this exact same asymmetry against a rival escape artist named Clapini. Clapini thought he had stolen the code to Houdini's French combination cuffs. On stage, he confidently locked himself in. He didn't realize Houdini had baited him, secretly spending weeks practicing how to change the tumblers mid-fight. Clapini was trapped, publicly humiliated by handcuffs that now only opened to the word fraud. Hoarding your tricks is a strategic necessity. It builds an unassailable moat that ruthlessly embarrasses any competitor who thinks they can easily replicate your success. The mandate here is clear. You must research, practice, and sweat endlessly in private. But when you step into the light, your actions must appear totally unburdened. There is a trap here, though. If you guard your secrets with visible paranoia, you ruin the effect. Looking frantic or overly defensive about hiding your work draws attention to it, breaking the very illusion of ease you are trying to project. Sometimes you can actually use transparency to your advantage. Revealing a small, highly calculated piece of your trick can build rapport, making your audience feel like they are in on the joke. P.T. Barnum was a master of this exception. He gladly published his own humbuggery and openly admitted to certain deceptions. It played perfectly to the democratic spirit of his audience, making them feel like co-conspirators. Full exposure, however, is a strategic dead end. When an audience understands the exact mechanics of a success, the achievement is instantly dismissed as a function of time and money anyone could replicate. Keep your blueprints locked away. By maintaining a strict, impenetrable wall between the grueling labor of the backstage and the flawless execution of the front stage, you force your audience into a state of primitive awe. Without the mundane details to weigh you down, they are left to project an aura of limitless, untapped power onto everything you do.